Hey guys, and welcome back to Donica and Shelby Read. I'm Donica.
I'm Shelby.
And today is our much anticipated by me book talk on The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. If you are new to our channel, welcome. If you're new to our book talks, just really quickly before we jump in, our format is always quick summary, rundown of the book, our thoughts on it, non-spoiler, and then we give y'all a warning, and then we jump into the spoiler talk where we just go to town. And there's generally no format to these book talks. Very carefree,
laid back, like if we were friends talking to other friends about what we thought of the book.
Because y'all are our friends. The Silent Patient, which is the debut book from Alex Michaelides, was I think our top read last year. Both of our, it was just incredible, amazing. That video is one of our most viewed videos.
And
so
that's like our first video. So we're like brand new to BookTube, and everybody...
Honestly, not much has changed. So quickly, we're gonna just do a brief summary of The Maidens. This is his second book. Now, this was my most anticipated read for this year. I mean, hands down, probably the most anticipated read. I could not wait to get my hands on it because The Silent Patient was just everything to me. I am more of the thriller horror. That's my go-to. Shelby, that's like you. I love you.
My mind is an enigma.
When you read The Silent Patient, that was like, what was that to you? I mean,
I've never in my entire life read something like that. So my brain didn't even know what to do. It was short-circuiting, and it was so good.
But
yeah, it was great.
To me, who is like a thriller mystery pro, I can see things coming, generally speaking, from a mile away. I feel like, I don't know, it just did something to me. It was perfect. So I had such high expectations for this book. We are following our main character, Mariana. She is a recently widowed woman, and she's also a group therapist. Yeah, this is a hard one to summarize.
Oh, maybe, okay, let me try. Give me one shot.
Give me one minute to stay.
In The Maidens by... I'm just gonna say The Maidens because I don't know how to say Alex's last name. In The Maidens,
it's Michaelides.
Is it
Michaelides? Yeah.
I said it two different ways. In The Maidens, we're following the main character Mariana, who is recently widowed. Mariana is recently widowed, and she is still trying to grieve that loss. But she's also a group therapist, so she's also working with her patients. And as she's, going about her day-to-day life, she's trying to pack things up and work through her grief.
Mariana is kind of almost like a Greek tragedy in her own life, because she has experienced multiple tragedies in her life. I don't know if you can tell from the cover, and it's also was presented as like this Greek mythological aspect, which I constantly say that's just my favorite thing to read about.
Yeah. There was way more in this one than in The Silent Patient.
Oh, yes.
And I actually, this is just a rundown, but I loved it.
The Greek aspect basically comes from the fact that things have happened in her life to where she questions if the goddess of death is out to get her. A few years prior than this, Mariana's sister and her brother-in-law were killed, and her young niece Zoe became kind of Mariana's and her husband Sebastian's adoptive daughter. Almost. They kind of
took over that role.
They took over and began raising her. So one night she gets a call from Zoe, and she's distraught, and she basically says one of her best friends was found murdered. And Zoe is going to Cambridge University. She is like, well, there's nothing really to it. I have to go to Zoe and make sure she's okay. When she gets there, she realizes that there's basically this professor, this handsome American. He's
Byronian. I learned that word in this book.
Ooh, what's that?
Byronianly handsome is like dark handsome, and when I googled it, that guy who plays Kylo Ren and Snape came up.
Okay, wait, so you just have black hair and you're handsome and you're Byronial handsome?
It's like brooding, dark kind of character. They just happen to all look like Snape.
Which
he was the blueprint.
Am I Byronially handsome?
We both are in this video.
In this video, period. I'm just Byronially handsome. So she gets there, and there's this Byronially handsome professor named Edward Fosca. And just briefly, she does some digging. It does not take her long to realize that there's this group of beautiful, exquisitely beautiful and special, but read that either rich or talented or something, and they are called the Maidens, and Edward Fosca leads them. Essentially, Mariana becomes immediately convinced that Edward is the murderer. With Zoe at Cambridge around this group, around this professor, she just doesn't even feel like Zoe is safe. And so as she begins to do her own type of detective work and try and figure out how to prove Edward's the murderer and how to protect these young ladies at this campus. That's just as brief a rundown as we can get without, diving into all the spoilery details. I think you kind of get the gist, and you can probably just run into it now, just not knowing too much else. Now what we like to do before we get into the spoiler is just tell you our rating for the book, and then non-spoilery why we feel this way, what was good, bad, and etc. I'll go first. Okay. You kind of know because of our mid-year book freakout tag, I did mention that this was actually the biggest disappointment to me. But it's one of those things where it's like you hold something up so high, the higher it is, the harder it can fall, and I feel like that kind of happened in this book. I just was expecting so much more. I ended up giving this a 3. A thing that's like a really big warning sign for me when I'm reading something and how I should judge it is when I finished this book, I was like, oh my gosh. It made me want to go back to The Silent Patient, because for me, the writing in this book was the dialogue. It came down to the dialogue feeling so forced and juvenile and weird. I don't know if you ever got this feeling where I was like, this dialogue just, and I'm not like an expert in writing, but
you are an avid reader, so when you like dialogue.
Thank you for sticking up for me. I was bullying myself. Did you get that at all when you were reading, that the dialogue was off in any way?
I didn't, but I did read some reviews afterwards where people were saying that.
The dialogue to me just felt very strange. It didn't flow naturally to me almost, and it was mostly between Zoe and Mariana, but even Mariana and Edward too. It was just cringy at some points. I had to think to myself, oh my gosh, did I read The Silent Patient? Did I give it 5 million stars? And was the dialogue horrible in that book? I didn't go back and read it, but when I was done, I literally thought, should I go back and read The Silent Patient to see if this was just a one-off thing where I just wasn't vibing with the characters, or what was going on? There were other things I'll go into in the spoiler version, but I guess that was my main problem. Certain characters, my whole thing is, if you're gonna have a red herring, wrap it up at least, or don't just
explain what happened behind that.
Throw things in there and then forget about them. My last big problem was how he did the mythological aspect. It was a lot more, I don't want to say pretentious, but it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun to me. The whole thing is, it was Persephone and Demeter, which is Persephone's mother. I just felt like the way he interweaved things was just a little, it was like I was missing the symbolism and all that things. I read a book and I'm trying to have a good time. I think maybe some of these things just went over my head. Overall, there were some good things. Not enough to make me be like, oh, this was so good. It was a decent read. It just wasn't blowing my mind.
Well, my rating would probably be 4 stars, and I think I'd probably do 3.5 bumped up to 4. If I was forced to give a star rating, it'd be 4.
I bumped it down because I'm not good. So it's probably 3.25.
People give 3.5 for many reasons. Sometimes it's to bump it down to 3, sometimes it's bump it up to 4. I think what really won me over with this book, and I think I realized this in myself, I feel like I'm slowly starting to realize what I like in books, and I love atmosphere, the feeling of a book. When I'm reading it, I love the feeling I have. And I feel like the atmosphere of the Maidens was amazing. It was this collegiate, but
they call it dark academia.
Is that what this is?
I've heard that.
I loved it. I loved the hearing about just these little, I guess Ivy League trends of having a fellows garden, where only fellows are allowed.
That's incredible.
I think stuff like that's cool, so cool. And then there's just this almost regal, kind of classy, academic vibe going on, and it was kind of misty there, and there was gardens everywhere, and I loved that. So I think the atmosphere of this book was spot on. Maybe because I was in this atmosphere of like, I guess, dark academia. The dialogue that would have been cringy, especially Professor... I was saying
Edward?
Professor... Yeah, Fosca, but I didn't know how to say it. The professor, his cringe dialogue, it like matched with the atmosphere. That was so weird.
Okay, so maybe that could be my problem. Like maybe I wasn't getting the whole picture. I wasn't getting the whole vibe I was supposed to be getting. It wasn't giving me what it was supposed to give.
This book gave me... I've only read one... I still don't know how to say his last name. I've said this in 5 different videos on our channel probably, and I apologize to Mr. P all the time. But this gave me major Chuck Palahniuk vibes. Oh. Major. Like, the one book that I read from him, this reminded me a lot of it. I would love to know if, like, Alex Michaelides is a Palahniuk fan, or if he even read the book. What book did I read?
It was that one with the ghost?
It wasn't on Wait and See Island. It was... There's a Palahniuk book that I read. I don't know if it was last year.
Yeah. First Booktober. The
way that the woman in that book is treated reminds me a lot of the way that this woman is treated. That one also had, like, kind of an academic vibe, because I believe that she met her husband at university, and I saw so many parallels. So I don't know, I guess maybe I had read something sort of similar to this before, so I don't know what really influenced, but actually I thought the way that he really bumped up the Greek mythology in this one was cool, but I'm also not a big fan of Greek mythology like Donica is. So I feel like there were so many factors that made it a different experience for me, because I like that it was bumped up. When Alex Michaelides tells me about mythology through his books, that's like the first time I'm ever hearing about it.
And it wasn't bad. I just was like, how he was presenting it, it was all symbolism, like which is my fault, because this is not a fantastical book. It's not fantasy. It's thriller and mystery. So
you really enjoyed The Silent Patient, looking deeper into the parallels between the mythology, though. Like, you had fun with it in that one.
Yes. So what was it? I'm trying to think, what was it that put me off? But to be fair, with The Silent Patient, it was good to me. It was fun. It was... I liked all the characters, even the broken ones. I'm like, this is incredible. So for me not to really care about the atmosphere because I'm having such a hard time with the characters, I think maybe that's just what made everything else kind of was like a ball that kind of just started rolling downhill fast. Where then I'm grumpy about everything because I'm like, wait, this is supposed to be so good. And you know what's so funny? The beginning of the book was awesome. It was almost like when she got to Zoe, when she got to Fosca, then I was like, oh my gosh, I hate everyone.
I literally was like, I'm 100 pages in, can't see why Donica thought this was regret yet, but I shall see. Like, I did get to some points where I was like, I can see where things are trying to unravel a little bit here.
I do like to go, after I'm done reading, I like to go look at people's reviews and not, these 5-star, this blew me out of the water. I don't go there because I'm like, wow, we were reading a whole different, I was a whole different vibe. But I go to like the 4 stars and then the 3 stars. And I'm like, does anyone get these vibes that I'm feeling?
I always jump to the 2-star. I love knowing what those people thought.
It's like the 1 star is like, whoa, let's calm down. The 5-star, hey, I'm not there either. But like the 3 and 2, that's like, okay, where are we? So I wasn't the only one. He's still gonna be on my radar. I'm always gonna be looking out because there are some things that were done so well that are super spoilers.
Well, then maybe we should jump into the spoilers.
We are. But I'm saying, when I looked at the end of the book, I looked at those 2 different things. I was like, this was done so well. I was like, but it wasn't enough to like save what I thought about the rest. So we're about to jump into the spoiler section, but overall, 3.5.
I say 4.
4. Round up to 4. Thank y'all for sticking around for the non-spoiler. We suggest reading it if you would like. And I would say, read The Silent Patient first. Would you agree?
I think that this would actually, that's something I forgot to say. I think that this could be a good standalone first Alex Michaelides book. If someone stumbled upon this one, and this was their first book by him, I think they'd be set. They'd be fine. They'd have a good idea of him. And then they could go to Silent Patient and be like, wow! This one is definitely more, I'd say, secret society-ish. Silent Patient is more like domestic, husband-wife relations.
True.
That goes more into also the actual system of like being in
an institution.
Yes. So that's like institution thriller. This is like academic, secret societies and college thriller.
So good. That could have been the whole, just everything we've talked about.
So choose your own adventure.
Choose your own adventure. Of course, me being more fond of the silent patient, I'm like, start there. But you may want to start here and move backwards.
Go back in quality.
But thank y'all guys so much for sticking around. We're gonna go ahead and jump into the spoiler portion. Let's see what we got. Hey guys,
welcome back to our channel. I'm Donica Shelby.
Alright, so let's go ahead and get into the spoiler portion.
Let's jump right into it. Y'all know how we are with the spoilers.
So y'all have already heard me complain about what I didn't like. The two things that blew my mind and I absolutely loved, and I was like, oh, is when I realized we were in the same universe as Theo.
Yes! It was like...
And it was Ruth!
It was like, I visited my, whatever she's called, Ruth, and I was like...
Weird?
I literally was like, is this a callback to Silent Patient?
Yes.
But I was like, no. It's probably not. And then it was like, call my young fellow Theo. I was like, oh no.
Wow.
There was someone who gave a review and it was like, really, did you have to throw it in my face that it's like a shared characters? I was like, I loved it.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Throw it harder if you could. I mean, that is incredible. And she talks to Theo and he talks about, you're realizing this is not even just the same world. It's the same year.
Yeah.
As
it's happening in parallel.
Everything's happening, which of course we can't.
And Mariana's the one who suggested the grove to him.
It was so cool. I mean, once again, he is like doing things that people should just do. I mean, if you're an author, do fun things like that. But we were already, I mean, literally, y'all, we were already towards the end when this happened. Yeah, we were probably already 3/4 of the way when we get the little Ruth shout out. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. The second thing that I was like, oh my gosh, loved it, were these, from the very beginning, you're getting these little bits of the journal entries. And I'm like, who is this?
Oh, and you have to try to figure out which man it is, because there's so many it could have been.
And I'm thinking...
It could have been Fred. It could have been...
Exactly. It could have been Fred. It could have been Edward. And it's so funny because Edward even says, I was on a farm or whatever.
And he didn't like his dad.
Yeah.
He was like, my dad was a cruel man.
You know what was super cool? The whole time I was like, it can't be Edward. It can't. I kind of thought maybe Zoe was involved somehow. But then the journal entries threw me because I was like, it can't be Zoe because this is a man. Like, this is clearly a deranged man. How would Zoe be connected? What?
I will say from the jump, and I'm sure you caught this too, I knew that it was a possibility that Sebastian and Zoe had been...
I did not. I didn't see it coming.
From the moment Zoe said, Sebastian wouldn't have said that. Oh. I was like, you don't get to say what Sebastian would have said. You sit there and eat your cereal.
I wasn't seeing it. That's just so cool.
I just already had this air of entitlement over Sebastian, but the thing is,
who is he?
Maybe someone like... I did kind of feel bad every time. I felt a little like angry at her because I was like, okay, this poor girl lost her parents. Sebastian was her father figure.
Yeah.
I had half of me who was like that, but then there was other times where she would say something about Sebastian and it was just like, why aren't you being there for Mariana? Like, you should have a closer bond with her. And there was just, my mind was already kind of turning about Zoe.
You know what? I think I was blinded because I did not like Zoe. I didn't. It's not that I didn't like her. I didn't care about her. Like, I didn't care if she died. I didn't care if she was next. I didn't care.
I kind of suspected something about her because of how much the book backed off from her. Like, there was whole times where she was like, never mentioned. Yeah.
So that whole journal entry, finding out it was Sebastian the whole time, I was
never knew that the journal could have been him.
Because you're expecting the person to still be alive and doing. Like, this is who the killer is. So that was brilliantly executed. And it just goes to show you that this book, to me, was fun if it wasn't the unlikable characters in this weird, really kind of cringy dialogue sometimes between... I mean, and y'all, I was cringing. I wish I would have marked... Because I was like, this doesn't seem like an author who is writing... this book that's going to be probably purchased, upwards of 1 million times over time. The Silent Patient almost has 1 million reviews on Goodreads. I mean, this is an author that's pulling in big numbers. I don't think dialogue should feel this forced.
I will say about the dialogue, as far as Mariana's concerned, it's less about the dialogue and more about her actions sometimes. I felt like there was this huge... It didn't line up. Like, I knew she was educated. I knew she was smart. It set up who she was, and then she would act completely contrary to that. Like, just a...
Yes.
And so sometimes she'd say things, and I'm like, you wouldn't say that, Mariana. So maybe that's part of the dialogue thing.
She was aware of when she was doing something wrong. Like, she'd be like, oh, I'm crossing the line with this patient. But then would continue to do so. But something that blew my mind when I was reading, because it just, once again, something that just went over my head, is this whole time, the whole entire book literally is about father figures. A bad father and what that does to everyone. How that can affect so many people.
Yeah. Ruth was like, think about it, Mariana.
Yes.
Think. And didn't even tell her the answer. Come on, Ruth. Help her out a little bit.
And at the end, I was like, how did I not see this coming? That it was always Sebastian. Like, Sebastian is the result of her having this delusion about her own father. And literally the whole book is like,
about Sebastian.
Yeah, this whole thing is like, they're literally saying throughout the book, if you are blinded by your own father, you won't be able to see other men. And it kind of like acts like, oh, we're talking about Edward, like you can't see that Edward is this, but it was like, no, she could not see her own husband was this twisted, manipulative man.
And how did she not know about his? She know about his childhood?
It was said, I remember briefly, that basically I had a bad childhood, he did too, we didn't talk about it. We just decided, you know what, we don't want to talk about our past, so we don't have to. So yeah, she did not really know what he was coming from. And
I don't know if this is like an element of tragedy, but I really have no clue. I don't know anything about that. But at the very end, she's like trying to convince, I forget who she's trying to convince, because she tries to convince so many people so many times in this book that it's Edward. But she's trying to convince someone, and she's literally laying out her and Sebastian. She's like, no, I know that these girls don't know that it's Edward, because when she's literally explaining herself and Sebastian, she's like, they're blinded. And they're like, they probably have problems with their fathers, and when you have a problem with your father, you don't see that the man that you're with is a monster. And it's like so tragic that at that point, I think we know that Zoe and Sebastian, like, I don't know how we know. I
feel like I could read this story again and be more like appreciative of it. It's gonna be the hill that I die on, that the dialogue is weird. Like, I will not get off of that. I'm very happy that you didn't think so, but I feel like I could read it again and just see those little hints of, oh my gosh, this, like you said, this is a description of Sebastian and Mariana to a T. The whole, she thinks that the goddess of death is out to get her, and she's like, why? Like, why?
Did you think that was creepy, how much that kept coming up?
Yeah, I was like, man, what did she do? Because she's cursed like this. And then I thought it was so cool at the end where I was just like, man, Persephone really saved her that day. I mean, like, he was gonna kill her.
To him. I mean, she's like, she prayed to her. Oh wow.
Which is funny because Persephone, her whole story is like, Hades fell in love with her, took her to the underworld against her will, and her mother was able to kind of make a bargain to have her daughter back for, half of the year. So we have like spring and we have winter or whatever. Imagine her sparing you. And I was just like, that is so cool to me.
Wow, I hadn't even thought of that. Well, speaking of the connections between like Persephone and that island, what did you think of Fred?
Okay, that's one of my plot holes because
weird little guy, always falling, always having fruit. Do you like that, Mariana? And will you marry me while you're at it? Okay, I had such mixed feelings, and I'm like, Alex Michaelides, why did you do this? I was so mad that he kissed her, and she got kissed twice, and she didn't like understand why it happened, and I was like, why did y'all do that to her?
Oh my gosh, this is a part where I think I almost cried. Perhaps Fred thought for a second, anyway, we need some proof, something concrete, or no one will ever believe us. How do we get that? We'll think of something. Let's meet first thing tomorrow. I'll be careful. Good. And then Fred paused. There's only one more thing to say. He grinned. You look incredibly, stunningly beautiful tonight. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife? No, Mariana shook her head. I won't, but thanks very much for the chips.
It's Mariana. I think she's the off one. Because Fred, he's in his character, but Mariana responding, no, but thanks very much for the chips. Like, that's what's off. I really think it's her.
Listen to this, and I wish I could have said this in the non-spoiler part. There is a clairvoyant man that finds you on a train, finds you again in a different area. Y'all separate, but he happens to find you again, follows you. You then turn to him for advice on a crime. You don't even know him. And then he's like, literally at the very end, saves your life because he's clairvoyant and knew you were in danger.
The thing is, he's low-key a little creepy because he wasn't just clairvoyant, he was following her.
I thought he was a ghost. I was like, is he going to be a ghost? Because that would be the only explanation. Oh, she says goodnight. They smiled at each other. Then Mariana turned and walked away at the end of the street, still smiling. She glanced back, but Fred had gone. Funny that. He seemed to have vanished.
That's right. Why would you put that line?
Literally, y'all, he's just gone. That's just, he's not a ghost.
You know what would have been a great...
He's a fast walker.
You know what would have been a great plot twist? If she's like...
There hasn't been a Fred around here in 37 years.
Yes. Old Fred with the bananas and the nuts.
That's from My Favorite Murder.
So she's talking to Fred and like he's done everything he can to help her, and then he's like, I am. No, he like was Sebastian's friend in college, and he always wanted to date Mariana. Wait, actually, Fred's like 10 years younger than Mariana. Never mind, that wouldn't work.
Well, we can bump his age up.
Sebastian's friend in college. He always wanted to date Mariana, but Sebastian got her instead. Somehow they both died, but Fred had to come back and help Mariana.
Oh, he died. Okay, he's a ghost, so he's still a ghost in your story. Okay. Yes, it would still make more sense. Okay, so that's Fred. I love him, but I don't understand him at all.
What about her patient?
Yeah, what is his name? Henry? Is that
Henry?
It's just a red herring. That's all Henry is. He's just a red herring. He makes it to the college, tries to attack her. There's no point to him being in the story.
Yeah, true. Literally.
Don't let me bully you. Tell me the truth.
No, really. There could have been like 30 pages removed and you would have never known he was there. And there was enough red herrings that we didn't really need him.
To be fair, Henry is the reason for her looking foolish, because if she is this educated, independent, strong woman, she's making a lot of mistakes when it comes to Henry, and knowing that he's crossing boundaries. I mean, I don't know if that's pivotal to her character, maybe to show that she is, maybe since her husband passed away, is grieving and not being as smart as she maybe used to be. Maybe that's part of it, to see that, oh, she's not on top of her game right now, she's still grieving, and like I don't know, maybe that's what it could be. Yeah, so those are my main plot holes to me, or my things that I'm like, it wasn't giving me what it should have. We didn't even really go into Edward Fosca.
I know.
Like, he's not, that's sad when he's not even the biggest problem. The literally disgusting sexual predator professor.
I know. Part of me even hoped that he was innocent, so that there was just like one decent person in this book who like was wronged. Even though he was like really creepy with the girls, if for some reason he actually was just, they were just in a society with him and he really was just inspired by Tennyson or whatever, and he didn't mean to make it creepy, he just was inspired, so they were all women, or like if it wasn't creepy, like that still would have been like, it would have been cool. It would have even given the book more depth, I think, if she like falsely accused someone who was innocent. Like that would be like, okay, sorry, that's on me. No, he still was also a terrible person. I just put that I think that the whole book is gaslighting Mariana. Like everybody is making her feel crazy. Zoe is making her feel crazy. Like all the men around her is making her feel crazy. So I guess it was just hard for me to watch like this poor girl like And it was the same way in that book by Chuck Palahniuk. Like, he wasn't afraid to just, like, take the dagger to the woman in that book and just turn it. And I just feel like that's kind of what happened with Mariana. Like, it just got worse and worse. And we learned in the last book, he's not scared to, like, Alex Michaelides is scared to go there with, like, tragedy and, like, cheating and unfaithfulness. That's something that, like, I've learned about him as an author, but just, like, dang, all the odds were against her. Even her, like, one confidant was against her. I wish that the professor could do more to help her, like, the female professor.
I did like the postcards that were being sent. I thought that was a neat thing to add, because the postcards were verbatim off of a poem. Like, it wasn't like he's just making this thing up. And it was, you know, foreshadowing the gruesome way that these girls were going to die. So I just was like, that was a really cool aspect. I liked those postcards. So yeah, Edward Fosca, although he wasn't the main villain, he was a good villain. What was the point of that bellhop? I don't know what he was exactly.
Morrissey? Is that his name?
How just having sex with that girl on a rock in the middle
that
of
was
a graveyard?
weird. Also,
what did that symbolize?
It didn't
Can
do
you tell
anything.
me?
That, like, did nothing for the book other than just ruin another man in the... Like, it just made another man a terrible person in the book. I guess what that did was, like, that was the one man that Mariana could count on to be there for her in the night. Like, when she was scared, she's like, well, at least this man that I've known is there to protect me. When she sees him in that moment, that's destroyed. Like, he's taking advantage of a young girl. He's obviously tied to Professor Fosca somehow. And in the end, he is tied to him. So, like, any of the men that she, like, could have been there for her. And, like, I mean, I know there's toxic masculinity, but I don't know if there's, like, an opposite of that, to where, like, because Morrissey, was his name Morrissey? Because he has, like, that little upper hand as, like, the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
He could have, like, used that influence to help her feel more safe. But instead, he used the influence in a toxic way. Yeah. And it, like, ruined another safety net for her. Like, anywhere she could have been safe, these men were just becoming terrible.
Even what would it, I know it's not like the police chief, you know, it's the UK.
Detective Sunga.
He was a horrible person. Why would
so
you
rude
not?
to her.
Why would, if you come to me and say, this professor who is using his position of power to literally run a group that's only beautiful females,
and they're having parties.
They meet at night, and one of them is dead. Or even when Veronica died, this one's dead. You come to me and you tell me this. Why would he not be your number one? It was almost like they were, like,
covering up.
They were it was almost like they're like, nope, it wasn't him. Like, why? You know, like,
and then
how?
Julian, someone else who was supposed to be her, like, on her side, he wasn't on her side either. He just, like, only cared about, like, going out for drinks or whatever. He would, like, let her look at the crime scenes, but...
And that is a good point. What does Mariana look like? What secret does she have that all of these men want her?
They all try kissing her at various times. Kiss her,
which, you know, you have to look... I read so many books where you have to go beyond and give these books some leeway. You can't say, this is not real life. This is just a story from someone's mind, and it's supposed to bring you entertainment and, you know. But when is there a woman who's going somewhere trying to solve cases and is just constantly being kissed or constantly being... Fred wants to marry her. Edward wants to be with her. Julian wants to be with her. Why?
I think that it's because those men are he's trying to make a point with them of, like, look, they don't take her seriously. Like, she's worthy of being taken seriously, but instead they're, like, reducing her down just to something that, like...
Yeah.
Just, like, the goal is to, like, let me try to lean and kiss you randomly. It's like, no, she has something important to say, but no one cares.
That's a great point. But I didn't like it. You know, I don't like reading about that. I don't like reading a book full of toxic masculinity. I know Alex Michaelides is trying to prove a point, but to me, it just makes a book of everyone's unlikable. You seem to have liked Mariana. I didn't. I thought she was making stupid decisions. I was like, you are being so foolish. I don't like you. I don't like Zoe. I don't like anyone in this book.
Yeah. Oh, I also didn't like Mariana. I also didn't like the choices she was making. I couldn't believe that I couldn't believe some of the things she did. I also actually didn't like her. I'm serious. Like, don't know if I said that yet.
Oh yeah, okay. Because I was thinking you did like her because you were like, you know, felt bad, but you felt bad for her.
Yeah.
It's not that you so much liked her. You're like, I just feel bad for this poor woman. We'll have to just, you know, wrap it up, y'all. We always miss something, you know. We always talk about the book after and like, oh, we forgot this but I think overall, you understand how we feel. As always, we are always so curious to know what you think. I'm always curious to know if someone feels opposite to me, which I do have a very polarizing view on books sometimes. Like if everyone hates it, I could love it. So I'm very interested to know, like, what was your favorite part of the book? What was your least favorite?
I looked over a lot of reviews just to see what people thought. I feel like there are so many elements to this book that it's kind of hard to hit them all in reviews. I would read people's Goodreads reviews and I'd be like, y'all didn't even talk about this, or y'all didn't even talk about this, and I wanted to know their opinion. So yeah, there is just so much, and there's so many things to analyze. It's like the actual line of the whodunit. Like we could have talked all about that. Like there's so many things to talk about. So I just love to hear what y'all thought.
Really didn't even talk about Zoe and her.
And the believability of that,
being the one. Yeah, that was.
We didn't even talk about that.
Well, you know what? I don't want to.
I don't want to either.
I didn't hate it as much as I've seen people hate it, but it was The Silent Patient, which is like when you have something that book, whether you love that book or hated it, I loved it. If you have something like that just shakes me to my core, it's going to be hard to do that again. You know, it is. It wasn't very believable. It was very strange, but it wasn't horrible. I've read worse, believe you me. Gosh, this is so pretty too. Look at that. Just look at the cover. Gosh, it's so pretty. All my gray stains on the back. What the hell? This is going through. All right, y'all. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share if you care. And until our next video, we will see you later. Bye.